My name is Charlotte Young, and welcome to tonight's live Discovery Den. So I am Creative Director and Support Mentor with Razzamataz Theatre Schools Limited. I joined Razzamataz just over 12 years ago and have been principal at multiple schools. I now work closely with head office, supporting the network and helping develop new projects. You will see on your screen, hopefully, there is a handout section, and in there is a downloadable prospectus that you'll be able to click on, have a little look through about the opportunity as well. If anybody's got any questions as we go, there's a little hand icon, which you can just click on that, and then we know that you've got a question or a comment. And if you'd prefer just to type that in the question box, that's fine as well. I'm going to hand over now and welcome Hayley Limpkin, who's going to be presenting tonight's webinar on her incredible and life-changing journey with Razzamataz. So Hayley joined Razzamataz in 2010 as principal at Razzamataz in Medway. And I'm now going to hand over to the lady herself. Thank you, Hayley.
Thank you, Charlotte. Hello, everyone, and a big warm welcome to our Discovery Den webinar. So this is, I'm going to try, hopefully, in the time that we've got, to really bring you into the world of Razzamataz and to explain my journey that I've taken from making that very first phone call to the franchisor through to where I am now. So as Charlotte said, I am Hayley, and I'm part of a very special network, which is Razzamataz Theatre Schools. And I currently co-own, alongside my new business partner, Razzamataz Theatre Schools in Medway. I'm currently in my 8th year of franchising, and I'd like to share my story with you all about leaving the big corporate world to setting up what initially I set out to be a lifestyle business, and now working with my business partner, as well as looking after my very excitable 4-year-old going on 14/24. So in just 7 years, we are proud to be the biggest franchise and the biggest school within our Razzamataz network. We employ 20 members of staff, and with a 6-figure turnover with profit margins of around 30%, which in my eyes is not bad for setting up what I initially set out with, was a dream of running a little dance school. This exceeded my expectations, along with the franchisor's expectations, in terms of what could be achieved through a Razzamataz Theatre School operating 1 day a week on a Saturday. So I'd like to kind of set the scene with everyone by going back to 2010, and it's Friday the 24th of September. Now, I'm not going to ask any of you to remember what you were doing on the 24th of September back in 2010, but I have very, very vivid memories as I sit in my home office, completely petrified about what is about to unfold in the next 24 hours. And it was my launch day the next day on the Saturday, and I'd been looking into Razzamataz since 2008, when I was beginning to feel very tired from commuting from Gillingham in Kent to Tame, which is near Oxford, up the M40. And I was doing that every day for 5 years, selling my soul to a very exciting, industry-leading but energy-sapping marketing agency. Now, don't get me wrong, I was incredibly corporately ambitious. I was always on the lookout for the next promotion, how I could grow my skill set, my experience, in order to kind of get the next big client and work with them. So, but I was, as I said, becoming very, very very tired. And I was thinking, actually, if I want to settle down and have a family, how actually would I be able to manage this with the hours and the traveling that I was doing around the country? So I started to Google dance school businesses for sale, and that's when I came across the Franchise Direct website, which you may all be familiar with. If you're not, I would recommend going on and just having a look, because it gives you a really good idea of the different franchising businesses that are out there for sale. And that's when I came across Razzamataz. Now, my background had involved training as a dancer, then working professionally for 4 years on cruise ships and at Disneyland, but I sustained quite a serious injury, which meant I had to consider or reconsider my options. I then started studying for my master's in business with the Open University on board my second cruise ship, and I was finishing one last contract as assistant cruise director. But what that did, managing my role there as well as working in my cabin every evening, kind of working on my assignments and things, meant that I was able to secure a role with a marketing agency whilst teaching dance of an evening when I left the cruise ships. So that's when I came across Razzamataz. Now, some of you may have remember Razzamataz on Dragon's Den. There is Mr. Duncan Bannatyne himself. He did invest in the business with a £50,000 investment for a 25% stake in our founder's company, Denise's company, back in 2007. He has since resold his shares back to Denise a couple of years ago, but it was very exciting actually working alongside Duncan Bannatyne. But anyway, finally, after lots of talks with the franchisor and 105 questions later, I am someone who likes to know the detail of things. I'm very indecisive, so I did raise quite a lot of decisions, but actually about 18 months to 2 years later, I made the final decision in January 2010 to sign on the dotted line to become a franchisee of Razzamataz Theatre Schools, whilst continuing my role as account director and looking after my client Virgin Atlantic at the same time. So there I was. It's 24th of September 2010, and I'm incredibly exhausted from a 37-hour corporate week, as well as working every evening since the January to build and grow my new business. The passion and belief that I had in the brand for Razzamataz and the support that I had from the franchisor, mixed with the excitement of having something that I could call my own, rather than being at the mercy of a client, actually fueled my energy to keep going through those 9 months and doing very long days, 7-day weeks. And I worked like this for another year before buying my second franchise in 2011, where the corporate job then had to go, and I was able to kind of knock that on the head. Now, I'm not saying that I did all of these hours to put anyone off, far from it actually, and quite the opposite, in that for a short period of crazy hours, I was in a position in just 1 year to buy a second franchise and let go of the corporate world forever, which was quite exciting. I wanted to share that kind of brief, that's the first half of the kind of this time with you, in that, and to summarize, there's a few tips that I wanted to share with you in terms of selecting a franchise and making that really bold decision to kind of step forward. And my first one is that you will get family members and friends saying, you can do this on your own, you don't need a franchise. And I had those questions, and I still have those questions to date. But my advice here to you would be to really think about the power of a brand. Now, there's two key things, which is why a franchise was important to me. The first was that my aim was all about super brand thinking, but at a very, very local level. Now, my favourite brand is and was, and have been very fortunate to work alongside them, as Virgin. And I wanted to achieve something very similar, but at a very, very local level. And with my experience of working within the marketing kind of industry and work for a marketing agency, was that I knew that the objective of marketing is to get your customers to know, like, and trust you. And having an existing brand that helps you achieve this quicker. What the Dragon's Den link had was it helped me achieve the credibility factor straight away and helped with the trust factor. And it's a little bit like people say to me, why didn't you set up the Hayley Limpkin School of Dance? Now, in a playground, if parents are talking to one another, actually no one knows who Hayley Limpkin is, just like no one at the time knew Razzamataz within my territory when I first set it up 8 years ago. But actually what it did was, when people started to do their research, started to look online, and found that actually Razzamataz was linked to Dragon's Den, Duncan Bannatyne had brought into the business, that instantly gave the trust factor in that, oh, actually this looks very secure, very robust, and actually in a time where disposable money, you have to think about the pennies and actually where you're going to spend them. Spending them in something that has a brand behind it and that does look robust and credible, customers are more likely to kind of spend their money. So look at your industry and see where the franchise fits in. Do they offer something unique to other franchises? And what appealed to me about Razzamataz was the culture and the opportunities for franchisees and students, and also the creative flexibility that we have. Now, I looked at all performing arts franchises, and that wasn't an option at the time. And the franchise system and ways of working stretched beyond just the business side, whereby it limited creative opportunity. But Raz wasn't like that. It actually embraced franchisees' opinions and ideas. So much so that actually 2 years ago, we developed a new product at Razzamataz Medway that is now being rolled out nationally to all other schools, and it's a class called Raz Project Intense, which ultimately prepares students for their next step of professional training. And that's where from our idea at Razzamataz Medway, so it wasn't just my idea, it was our team's idea, we were able to share that with the franchisor, and that is now being rolled out successfully throughout the network. The other thing that I liked about the franchise was that, as I mentioned earlier, I am an incredibly indecisive person. And Razzamataz had a business model that did and said what it does on the tin, so to speak. Now, I knew that, again, from my studies with the Open University, that where new businesses can fall down very, very early on within starting out their business is actually knowing what it is that they offer and their core product of what they offer, and actually what is going to generate the revenue that they can then reinvest back into their business to continually grow. And I knew that at being very indecisive, if I had a prospective parent ring and say, oh, do you offer this class? I might be inclined to say, oh, no, we don't currently, but we can look at it. But actually what a franchise does is that they've already made those mistakes. They know what's going to appeal to your customers. They know what's going to generate the revenue, which is very important in your first crucial months, years, to enable you to put that back into the business. So again, that for me was really important, that it was a brand and a product that quite clearly said what it was that we offered on the tin. And I could stick to those guidelines very early on, before then seeing another gap in the market and taking that idea to the franchisor. My second or third, I think we're on now, was speak to other franchisees. And they are the highest, the lowest performing franchisees within a network, and also the newest and the oldest franchisee. Now, I don't mean oldest in terms of physical age, but I mean oldest in terms of how long they've been in the network. What that will do, we give you a good all-round view of their perceptions of the network. And I think that's really, really important. Any business will go through different phases and different cycles of their business, from infancy through to a period of growth, through to maturity. And I think it's really good to get perceptions and feedback and honest feedback from franchisees in every one of those journeys, because ultimately, if you're investing in this, you want to be in it for the long haul. You want to know that this is going to work, and you want to know that you are investing into a culture that is nice and supportive at every one and every stage of that journey. It would also give you an idea of all of the different earning scenarios, and whether that fits with your ideas, your perceptions, what's realistic for you as well. My next tip would be ensure that you have working capital. Don't rely on earning straight away. Now, I left a good salary, a very good salary, a bonus scheme, a company car, medical healthcare, to go into a world that at the time was quite unknown for me. Was this going to work? Was it not going to work? I had every faith in the brand that it would, but ultimately it's still leaving quite a secure safety blanket to do this. And I genuinely believe that I was able to open a second franchise a year later because of having a reputable brand behind me with clear systems and processes that meant I could grow quicker than if I'd started this and done this on my own, so to speak. And finally, for this first half of this section, is ask yourself, what does success look like or mean to you? Ultimately, there is no one ultimate clear definition of success. It will differ for everyone individually. And I would say that you need to know what your exit strategy looks like very, very early on, which you might sit here and think very early on, well, that's really strange. I haven't even invested in a franchise yet. How am I going to know what my exit strategy is? But ultimately, that, as I said, that could sound bizarre, but ultimately what that means is that that's the reason why you are doing this. You need to know your why. Why are you investing into this? Why this franchise? Why is it that you want to go out and run your own business supported by a franchise network? And this could be something as, for example, a retirement plan. So mine was, I didn't want to be in the corporate world. I wanted to have flexibility of a business that I could run alongside having a family and achieve a healthy work-life, achieve a healthy work-life balance. That could also be that actually you want to invest in a brand, something that you might really enjoy, something that's quite rewarding. Working with children is hugely rewarding, and the biggest motivator of what myself and our team do at Razzamataz Medway. But ultimately you might think, well, I know I want to invest in this for a period of time, and then actually I want to sell on to be able to invest into something else, or whatever that might be. And that looks extremely different for everyone. But I would say be really clear on why it is that you are investing in a franchise, so that that can keep you and help you to stay focused. But also it helps you look at the scalability of a franchise. Is this franchise a franchise that is set solely as a lifestyle business to run alongside a family, or actually is there bigger potential with the franchise that you're looking into that could help you scale up and ultimately look at other growth opportunities? So yeah, the Razzamataz franchise has allowed me and my business to grow in a very short, what I believe a very, very short space of time. The second section of this is all about finding people who are better than you to come into your business and to team up with. And I truly, truly believe that finding people better than you are the key to helping taking your business to exciting levels. Now, I received a call after launching my first franchise, probably 2 to 3 months actually after sitting in my home office in my bedroom in that September. And this lady rang me and she was highly enthusiastic and really, really keen to come on board. And I said, I don't have any vacancies. I don't have any roles available for you. But she said, no, that's fine. I've seen what you do. Our venue at the time was in a gym. I've got a prospectus here and I'm really, really keen to come and talk to you. This is the sort of thing that I'd love to come and do, and a job that I'd love to do. So I agreed to meet with her for a coffee, and we agreed for her to come on a voluntary basis to start with. That lady then went on to become one of our best teachers and our assistant principal, and my second right-hand person who I went to start to grow the 2 franchises that I had with me. Now, when my son became extremely poorly at 11 months old in 2014, I was forced to think about an exit strategy a lot sooner, and a very different exit strategy to the successful plan for retirement strategy that I had when I set out. My son actually had a stroke and needed open heart surgery. And as we know now, he now needs rehabilitation for the rest of his life. He is doing brilliantly, but this naturally changed things hugely. 6 months later, I had sold my second franchise to this lady who had inquired a few years earlier, about 3 to 4 years earlier. And I had sold my second franchise to her, and actually realised my investment by 233% in just 4 years of having my second franchise. I continued with my first franchise, and this continued to grow, all whilst managing appointments for my son, along with the normal challenges that having children brings. But the reason I wanted to share this with you all is because that is the exciting silver lining in this story. In that actually, had I still been in the corporate world when my son had been extremely poorly, and I had to look after him, ultimately that's where my heart was and what I wanted and needed to do, I would have had to make huge changes that actually I may not have been able to sustain my job. But here I was in a franchise network that meant I had options. I had support from the network, whereas otherwise I could have found myself with very limited, if not any options. So here I am now in 2018, and last year I sold 50% of my business to my new assistant principal. Who is now my business partner. She's a younger businesswoman and has lots of skills in very different areas to mine. And she came on board, hugely exciting last year. And this has allowed our business, Razzamataz Medway, to start looking at even more exciting ways in which we can grow and take the business to the next level. Again, my new business, or my business partner, started with me while she was in her professional training at college. She started on day one with me as an assistant. From there, she went from an assistant to a teacher. From a teacher, she started to take on admin roles within the office. From there to an assistant principal, and now to co-owner and joint business owner, 50-50 shareholder with me of Razzamataz Medway. Now, I wanted to share these two stories with you because without great people surrounding me, I wouldn't have had the opportunity to have the growth and to build the schools that I've had. The great thing about franchising is that you have this threefold. You have it from those that you recruit within your team and that work with you on a daily basis, sharing your goals, living and breathing what it is that you set out to do and to achieve. You have this from those in the wider network, other franchisees that all share the mutual goals and vision. And then, of course, you have the franchisor who actually wants you to succeed and is championing you to succeed just as much as you want to do. And I guess, where else do you have these layers of support, but you still have the control and the creative autonomy of your business? So the last 8 years have been by no means easy. In fact, far from it. But it's been hugely rewarding. Don't get me wrong, we still have challenges and have had huge challenges throughout the last 8 years, business challenges, I mean, in the sense of we've had to move venues, we have had to move our staff from freelance to employees. We have had to look at going over the VAT threshold and the implications that come with that in terms of increasing fees. But actually, what it has also allowed me to do is give me financial freedom, flexibility, satisfaction that I get the direct result and output of the work that I put into my business, being able to support my son with appointments and family, and having someone actually that I can pick up the phone to who understands my business just as well as I do, I personally believe makes for a great recipe for success. As you might have noticed on the screen is Ashley Banjo. We have some exciting partnerships as well, which every term there is something exciting that is going on within the wider network that reminds you this is why we do what we do, to create amazing opportunities for young people within your area, but at the same time having a great work-life balance that means that you can get so much out of running your business as well. So I guess really to kind of end on before we open up to questions is do your research, but go with your gut. Yes, you need to be prepared to work incredibly hard. But I genuinely believe it's the old cliche that says you only get out what you put in, and it's really true. To leave you on a thought, I attended a conference a few years ago with my other company actually, where I was very lucky and fortunate to have the opportunity to talk to James Cracknell, and a professional an Olympic rower, for those of you who I'm sure you're all familiar with James Cracknell. And he was talking to us at this conference about peak performance and telling his story of the Athens Olympics, where Canada were neck to neck with another country. And he worked incredibly hard for that Olympics. I don't know if any of you follow James Cracknell's story, but actually he took a bit of a break from rowing. So going back was a huge personal challenge for him. And he was talking to his trainer, and he was talking about his anxiety about doing this and what he's going to do. And his trainer said some words to him that really, really resonated with me at that conference, and actually did at the moment when I was thinking about launching a franchise. And it were these words that actually made James Cracknell go that little bit kind of tougher as to kind of go over the finishing line. And it was, if not you, who? And if not now, when? And I constantly look back and think, my goodness, if I hadn't have taken that leap of faith, and yet it took me 18 months to 2 years to pick up the phone and speak to Denise about signing on that dotted line, someone else could have come in and brought my territory and got involved with Razzamataz. And I, would have kind of not had the amazing 8 years that I have had, and been able to let go of that, of the corporate world, and have something that I enjoy and get great satisfaction from. So yeah, I would say seize the opportunity, know your why, and absolutely kind of go for it. So if we could open up to some questions, if that's okay, Charlotte, if you're there, if anyone has any questions.
Yep, I've got a question here, just typed in from Jasmine. Thank you, Jasmine, who's asking, what's the maximum number of students you can have in a class?
Yeah, sure. Good question, Jasmine. Thank you. So we do work to quite strict ratios. So we have, it varies from age group, if that makes sense. So for our TOTS classes, who are 2 and 3 year olds, we have a maximum of 15. That is a parent assisted class. We at Medway also choose to put a teacher and a teaching assistant in there. So the ratios there are 1 to kind of 7, 1 to 8, and so that every parent and child within that TOTS class can feel valued, involved and supported. Within our minis classes, which are our 4 and 5 year olds, we have a maximum of 18 in that class, but 2 teachers. So again, the ratio is 1 to 8 within that class. Within our juniors, which are our 6 to 8 year olds, we have a maximum of 28, again with 2 teachers. So the ratio is 1 to 14 within that class. And then for our inters and our seniors, we have a maximum of 30. Again, we have a teacher and assistant. So again, the ratio is 1 to 15, and we don't go above the 30 bracket in line with a school class, but we do always have the teacher and the assistant within those classes. So yes, we have 500 students at our school in Razzamataz Medway, but we have a very clever timetable and lots of classes running between 9 and 5:30 in order to adhere to those ratios. And all of our classes, we have a waiting list. The majority of our classes are full, but that's how we achieve the high number, through having a very clever timetable. We have 7 to 8 studios that we're in literally back to back between 9 and 5:30 on a Saturday. Hopefully that answers your question, Jasmine.
Thank you, Hayley. I'm just checking now to see if I can see any more questions in. If anyone wants to raise their little hand icon to speak, we can unmute you and you can speak live to Hayley or myself, or you can type them in the questions box. I'll just double check now. I can't see anything else, Hayley, as yet. Is anyone frantically typing?
Just give it a couple of minutes.
Yeah, no, I think that's it for now.
Brilliant, lovely. So I guess just if you would like any more information, or would actually like to kind of get along to see a school in action, because the Saturdays kind of why we do what we do, is the kids are so great, so passionate, are there because they want to be there, and we have the pleasure of teaching those students every single week. And I must say, we're quite biased, but we feel we have some of the best young people in Medway, and we feel very privileged to be able to kind of work with them on a weekly basis. But if you did want to go along to see a school or speak to our franchise recruitment manager in more detail, that's Susie. Susie's email address is on the screen there, susie@razzamataz.co.uk, or her telephone number is there as well. There is also a handout, I don't know if you can see in the panel on the right hand side of your computers, as Charlotte said at the beginning, which is our prospectus, our franchise franchisee prospectus. So there is a lot of information in there as well. But I hope you've been able to take something from this. And as I said, yeah.
Actually, Hayley, they've just come in. So we've got Matty's just asking, how much of your time during the week do you spend working on things for your school?
Yep. Great question, Matty. Yeah. So being very, very honest, in the early days, all the hours that it takes to kind of get your school up and running. But obviously, also in the very early days, I had a job alongside running Medway. So I picked up my hours of an evening and of ultimately weekend. I then actually did reduce I wouldn't recommend that though, being very, very honest, is I would say if you have a part-time job, then that's brilliant, because I actually did nearly kind of, make myself ill from doing that. So I would recommend, I did actually reduce my hours to part-time hours so that I had 2 days a week plus my weekend in order to be able to focus on my school. And then when I set up my second school, I then ultimately dedicated my full-time hours to both of those schools. Then as the school has kind of grown, there's been peak times where I have worked kind of all the hours that it takes. Bearing in mind my little boy now is 4. Since he's come along, I've had to be a lot stricter with my time, and actually it's amazing what you can achieve when you have to be strict within that time. I have a very strict timetable that I work to, that I set out in terms of the tasks that I do on set days, and I have an amazing support team around me now as well, in our operations manager and my assistant principal and my business partner. So now, because there are 2 of us, I now do 3 days. They are long days, don't get me wrong, but I dedicate 3 days to Razzamataz Medway now after 8 years, and putting in place the infrastructure to enable me to do that. So I hope that again answers your question, Matty. What I wouldn't want today is say, oh yeah, it's only taken me 3 days a week. What I wanted to do there is try and explain the journey that I've been on in terms of the time that I have dedicated to the business over the last 8 years.
Thank you, Hayley. And Jasmine's got a question asking, where do you recruit your teachers and what are the rates of pay?
Yeah, good. Very good question. Again, you're fully supported with all of this at the franchise training. The franchise training is a fantastic week. I must admit, I wasn't skeptical when I went on the franchise training, but I'd done a lot of research with the British Franchise Association around good franchises, what to go for, questions to ask franchisors when you're kind of looking out. And one of them said was, ask for a copy of the timetable on what they do, because sometimes franchise networks that aren't affiliated to the BFA and so on and so forth may not provide the adequate training that you need. But I must admit, the training was phenomenal. I wanted to mention that because one of the huge sections on there is how to recruit staff, how to recruit the right staff, and how to train your staff and where to find them. I find a lot of our team initially came from, we did adverts in the Stage newspaper. We did adverts on a couple of specific related industry specific websites such as Star Now, Talentcast, which isn't around anymore but was around at the time. Now a lot of our adverts go out on dedicated Facebook groups to kind of groups, again, set up for performers or ex-performers or performers who want to perform of an evening but have some work maybe during the day. So I get a lot of my teachers that way, but also word of mouth. So because we now have 20 in the team, we get a lot of team members now who want to join because they know other team members who want to bring them into the team and so on. So I would say it's a real mixture in terms of where those staff come from. Now, with regards to pay, that will ultimately be area and geography specific. We are in the southeast, and a lot of our team do travel from London to where we are. So our pay does vary depending on experience, depending on qualifications, and depending upon professional training. What we have at Raz Medway is a nice mix of teachers who have their professional training and professional credits to their names, and then we have other members of the team who may be fully qualified teachers, have got their qualified teaching status, who have done their professional training at a performing arts establishment, but may not have the creds. And actually what we find is that they support each other really, really well. So we have a real wide variety of pay scale depending on where they fit. It's very, very fair, and we're very transparent with our team as well with that. And that starts at £17 per hour and goes up to £30 per hour. But again, that will be dependent upon members of staff, their experience, their qualifications, and so on. So hopefully that's answered that.
Thank you, Hayley. I'm just going to check if there's any other questions. No, we don't have any more.
Lovely. Well, thank you everyone for your time. As I said, there is Susie's email address there, and I'm sure you've all got Denise's email as well. Please do get in contact. No question is too small or too silly. Please do ask questions. Yeah, and especially if you get off this call and think, oh, I should have asked that, which is completely understandable.
Oh, thank you. I'll just come on to say a big thank you to Hayley as well for her time. I hope you guys have found Hayley's story and journey really inspirational, which I certainly have. So thank you all very, very much. And Susie will be in touch and follow up to give you some more information as well on an email.
Lovely.
Oh, I've just seen we've got a quick question from Jasmine. Yeah. Jasmine is saying, she's just saying thank you very much, Hayley.
Oh, you're welcome, Jasmine. Thank you. It's so hard, isn't it, not seeing the other people? So yeah. So I've had to remember. Oh, Hayley, you're actually talking to a webcam. So forgive me if my eyes have kind of wandered off and stuff. But thank you for your time, and thank you for your questions as well, Jasmine, and to Matty as well.
Thank you very much, guys. Thank you, Hayley.
Thanks.
Bye, everyone. Have a good evening.
Bye-bye. Bye.